I'm pretty confident that there's not going to be a pension there for me when I get there. And this is why they brought KiwiSaver out.
What advice are you giving these people to facilitate some of these combos or maybe even understand their parents' financial situation better?
Cash flow, budgeting, it's the thing that nobody likes talking about, but it is the foundation to everything else.
Do you think that a lot of Kiwi people think that they're better off financially than what they actually are?
I don't think it's that they think that they're better off than they are. I think it's that they are too scared to think about it at all.
Will my parents be able to afford to retire? This is a conversation that Amy from leverage.co.nz is having more and more with people. And I think that it's a subtle conversation that's happening in New Zealand that many of us are hiding from but wanting to have more of. So can you just rip the Band-Aid off and tell us what you're seeing with some of these conversations?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of grown kids of parents that are entering into retirement concerned about the parents' retirement. Like, what's going to happen when the parents stop working? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to need to support the parents through retirement? How is it going to happen, really? And so many people that I talk to, their opening line is, I just want to have a plan, I want to build some wealth because I don't want to end up like my parents are. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's quite scary, because, potentially offensive to some of our parents hearing that, like, I don't want to end up like my parents. And I'm sure people don't mean any harm by that as such, but they can obviously see, what the outcome has been for their parents and are thinking, sheesh, I've got a bit more education, or now that I can see that reference point, I've got to make some different decisions.
Yeah. Not obviously end up like my parents, but don't want to be in the situation where I have still got a mortgage when I retire and I'm going to have to try to live off the pension. And, the pension is not going to cover the mortgage and food and power and insurance and rates and all the rest of it. So,
well, the average age that people clear their mortgage is getting older and older, and it's getting further beyond 65, right? And the basic fundamental framework of retirement in New Zealand, from what I've learned, is basically superannuation, mortgage-free property, and then that's your base, and then, you're doing well if you've got something beyond that. And I think it's becoming increasingly evident, even with just increasing rates and insurance, sheesh, your income isn't moving in alignment with your costs, even for retirees. Therefore, the basic framework may not be enough for people by the time they get there.
Well, and also by the time they get there, what is the pension going to look like?
Yeah. I don't know. But I'm scared. Well,
I'm pretty confident that there's not going to be a pension there for me when I get there. It doesn't make sense. And this is why they brought KiwiSaver out. And, they're just slowly integrating KiwiSaver into our way of life. When KiwiSaver came out, what was it, 2008, 2009?
7 maybe, yeah.
7.
Yeah.
And they had the $1,000 kickstart and they had the,
Government contributions. And then they're slowly just increasing the amount that we need to contribute into it. And, they've taken away the kickstart, they're taking away the tax. But all these things are us increasing our contributions over time. It's all just getting us prepared for us to be able to look after ourselves in retirement. Yeah, I reckon, that'd be really, a lot of people won't agree with that, but I'd rather be more paranoid that could be the case. Because I just kind of think that we're a nation of you got to look after people, but the people that have more or doing really well should pay more. And that could sound political or even offensive as well, but I almost preempt that I'll be one of those people who prepare early, have amounts in KiwiSaver, and the people like me, it'll eventually be like, well, why do you need the pension? And then people will go, yeah, that's a good point. Why do you need the pension? You've got heaps. But then the people who took their money out of KiwiSaver at the moment because of hardship, etc., they are still going to have to be looked after. Who is going to pay that cost? So
I don't think, again, there's like a right or wrong to this, and just hear people's opinions out in this space, but come back to, what the hell am I doing? And for me, I'm like, that could be the case where there's not the pension, or that I get means tested. So I need to take this shit more seriously. And the earlier I do it, the better position I'll be in, and I'll be thankful in the future that I did do it.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably always going to be some form of pension there, but there might be means testing around it. So if you've...
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly a lot of people are just wanting to make sure that their parents are happy and comfortable throughout their retirement, and they're not convinced that that's going to be the case. And so they're kind of trying to prepare themselves to make sure that they're in a position to be able to support their parents if they need it.
And is part of it, because some people just won't be able to do that, financially they will not be able to help. And maybe they get the education too late, and then they learn, okay, my parents are going to struggle, and they are starting their financial journey later. I don't even know what I'm trying to ask, but it's almost like some people are going to have to accept that actually they're going to have to put their own life jacket on, and they're not going to be able to provide for their parents, right?
Or they start making moves around, well, are we all going to have to live together?
Yeah. Because I guess it's very it's pretty accepted now in New Zealand culture, everyone goes off in their own direction. But I think that'll change, and it's not like that in all cultures, right? And even you're seeing younger people stay at home longer because of the cost of living. And equally, imagine how tough younger people would be doing it at the moment if they had to leave the house. There was probably a time in New Zealand when you were 17, 18, get the out of here, you're out.
Yeah.
These are the rules.
Yeah.
But now...
It's like 27, 28.
Yeah.
Is the average age that people move out of home.
But also they'd be going out now into unemployment of around 20% for youth. And they'll be like, well, how does this work? I can't make any money. What do you mean I've got to get out of the house? So these things are always changing, right? But why I asked that is because I had a message recently from somebody who was telling me about their parents, and they said to them, KiwiSave is a scam. That's all BS, and that's just the government trying to get your money and make sure you have less. And they're like, I believe that for ages. And so I never did anything about retiring. And I said, can I ask you a question without being offensive? I'm like, are your parents broke? It's like 100%. But man, that is tough, because now they've got the education. They're looking at their parents, are almost resenting that they were holding them back. They've missed a decade of compounding. And now that they're better educated, they've got to worry about their parents and how it's going to play out for them as well. I think this is a really gnarly topic for New Zealanders.
It is. And it's a hard one as well, because these kids that want to make sure that their parents are going to be okay, they don't really want to have the conversation with the parents. And the parents, the last thing that they want is for their children to be feeling the way that they are. And so it's a really hard topic for people to talk about. And often it's a really hard for people to come up with the right solutions.
Yeah, especially, when you're coming from a place of lack yourself, or you're wanting more, but you're not there yet, or that you're chasing down your own goals, but to then have to be factoring in theirs. What advice are you giving these people to facilitate some of these combos, or maybe even understand their parents' financial situation better?
Yeah, well, it is about, for a lot of people, they're being held back because they want to support their parents, because their parents supported them, growing up. So they want to be there to support them, but they don't know to what extent, because they don't know, they're not across the parents' full position. And so oftentimes it's a case of, we actually kind of pause things with them, and then we'll work through a financial plan with the parents to see how they're going to manage the rest of their lives. Are they going to be okay, or is there a shortfall? Now the children know what they need to allow for, if anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes the parents are actually in a better position than what they thought, and so it can actually provide a lot of relief. But it's just that understanding and communication.
Yeah, I almost this is a massive generalization. Hopefully the old person will back me up, but sometimes feel like baby boomers and the older generation, like they don't want to be told what to do or actually have these convos as well. And maybe some of the generations coming through are a bit like, hey mum, hey dad, like tell me more about this. But it's a bit like, no,
Yeah.
because they didn't have convos like this
Yeah.
with their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And particularly people, like the people that are listening to Keep the Change, they are actively upskilling themselves around knowledge around money. And so they want to, be able to talk about that. But the parents from a different generation where you never talked about that and perhaps they haven't been exposed to Keep the Change, they're kind of on a different wavelength. They don't know how to talk about money.
Yeah, it's funny. There's two very quick stories. I had one who was telling me about how he was teaching his dad about shares because his dad had always stuck to property and business and stuff, and then just finally just goes like massive investment with an investment provider, and he's like, "Whoa, Dad, you've really like just dived all in there." And then a little while later is like, "Oh shit, how did I not know about this sooner? Like apparently my portfolio's up well over like 10% or something." And was like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
And then another was saying to me that their dad has just brought another property. It's like, now's the time to buy. And they're saying, "What? Like, why do you need another? Like, haven't we got enough already?" And may have over 7 figures of property, but 100 grand of shares. And is saying, what about, diversifying or rebalancing that? And it's like, no. This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what works. But at least they're having those conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I had an interesting scenario recently with been talking to a lot of people who have been wanting to move to Australia or have moved to Australia or are in Australia, want to be moving back, all sorts of different scenarios. And one particular scenario that kind of stood out for me was this couple who I've actually been working with them for, 10 or 15 years and helped them with their first 2 investment properties back when they were in their 20s. And they are now living in Australia and they're earning good income and they've got these 2 young kids. And they want to, they'd love to come back to New Zealand, but they're like, our income is so much better in Australia, and so we don't think like we're going to be here for another 5 or 10 years. But we really want our kids to grow up in the New Zealand lifestyle. Like, we'd love to live at Mount Maunganui. We'd love for our kids to be able to go to the beach after school, just have that space. They're living, in the middle of Melbourne City, and we went through a bunch of scenarios, and actually they could achieve their financial goals even if they came back to New Zealand now and accepted a lower income because they've done so much work beforehand, right?
Yeah.
And they had no idea that this was the case until we actually worked through the numbers. And they were like, wow. But we really need to be here in Australia because, we couldn't go back to New Zealand and accept this lower level of income. And I'm like, why? What do you need the extra income for? We want our children to be able to have choices and options later in life. And we want to be able to leave that generational wealth. We want them to have opportunities. And it's like, well, equally, if you brought them back to New Zealand now and allowed them the freedom to be able to go to the beach after school and have the lifestyle and be around your family and friends, like, that's an opportunity as well. So is it more important that you give them that opportunity of lifestyle the way that they grow up, or the opportunity for have maybe a couple of freehold properties when they're, much later in life.
Yeah.
There's opportunity everywhere. You've got to decide what's most important to you. And so just as kids are trying to make sure that their parents are being supported, there's also a ton of parents out there that want to make sure that their kids are going to be okay. And what sacrifices are they going to make to ensure that their kids are all right? And it doesn't just come in the form of money, There's lots of ways that kids and parents can help each other and support each other. Doesn't necessarily mean handing over cold hard cash,
Yeah, I've seen a wave of educated people who have learnt more about investing, realising, if I invest for my children from day dot, that I can set them up. So I don't need to, come up with this concept in my head of, financial freedom for my children or whatever. It's basically, if I put a lump sum of money aside now at day 1 or day 3, day 4, year 5 or whatever, I can turn that into a massive snowball over time with compounding.
Yep.
And I'm seeing that come through, but then at the same time, so they're obviously worried about their kids, which is really cool, and setting them up. But then at the same time, then thinking, what am I going to teach them if that's like if that worldview is basically, I get to 65 and I'm going to have $1 million or whatever the numbers may be, or 21 or whatever. Like, do I then tell them, you need to go out there and work, or you don't? And I think so with everything with money and options and stuff, there's no perfect or there's no right or wrong, right? Do you get a sense that a lot of us think that there is these sort of, like they must come to you and think there must be a hard and fast answer?
Every parent that I talk to, when we start talking about goals, just about everyone want to help our kids into property because they think it's going to be so hard for their kids to get into property. I mean, it's always been hard for people to get into property. Like, you've always had to have some sort of sacrifice to get into property. They think it's going to be impossible for their kids to get into property.
Yeah.
And, when I start talking to the parents about this is how people are getting into property these days, we've got a KiwiSaver and they're like, oh, wow, okay, maybe it's possible. But for a lot of parents, actually being able to help their kids into property is not realistic. Like, when they've got to look after their own retirement first, and there's just not going to be anything else to be able to do that. But, one of the ways that they can help their kids is maybe they allow their kids to tap into equity in their home to help them with the deposit. And that way the kids still need to take out the loan, and they still need to pay that money back. They still need to prove to the bank that they're responsible and they're earning enough income that they can pay that mortgage off. So they're kind of doing the work. They've just got a bit of a leg up from their parents who are allowing them to, use a bit of equity to help them get into property sooner.
And for those who, are worried about their parents and can kind of see, wow, they've put nothing aside, they've got nothing in KiwiSaver, they are, day to day or week to week. What do we tell them without feeling that there's no help? Like, what do they need to be doing? Is it money talks, for instance? Is it trying to have a conversation with them? Because I could imagine there'd be some that they can see that their parents' financial future is probably very different to how their parents may see that it's going to be.
The children think that the parents are going to be worse off than...
basically, like, get to 65 and effectively be broke.
Well, it's pretty grim. People are choosing to work longer if they can, They're just... And they're doing it just because they have to. They've just got to keep working.
Yeah.
Pay off that mortgage.
Do you think that some people, or a lot of Kiwi people, think that they're better off financially than what they actually are?
I don't know.
Because I suppose you work with people who are trying to get in control of it, but I always wonder about the people who don't ask for help and don't put their hand up.
I don't think it's that they think that they're better off than they are. I think it's that they are too scared to think about it at all.
Got you.
So they just kind of like, we'll be okay. Yeah. Subconsciously, like, yeah, we're okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of tell them that at a high level. But don't want to dig into it any further because they're fearful of what they might uncover. It's just easier to put your head in the sand and not think about it.
Because at the moment, there's a wave of this that I see, and it's because when they start talking about KiwiSaver contributions increasing, there's a fair bit of blowback of like, people are struggling. How could they contribute even more to their KiwiSaver? Which that makes a lot of logical sense, right? But I think one thing I started thinking about is, but how do the debt dealers, like the buy now, pay later providers and the insurance-free companies, etc., the person presents himself and they say, like, I can't afford to save for my retirement. Don't you know about cost of living? But the debt dealer goes, assess this, assess that. We can lend you a bit of money. Like, how do they know that they can lend that person money and trust that their business model won't break, that they'll get that money back? Now, I'm not talking about like outliers here where it does break. I'm talking about the people who think that they can't afford something, but then will go and borrow money, and the debt dealer goes, yeah, we reckon you can pay this back somehow, some way.
Often people can afford things when they want to. They'll find the money somewhere when they, if they want it bad enough.
Yeah. Most Kiwi don't have a financial plan. They have a she'll be right, mate attitude. Amy from Leverage is helping KTC listeners change that. If you're needing direction, clarity, or wondering what your next financial move should be, then book a call with Amy or download her free DIY financial plan to freedom. To do that, visit financialplan.co.nz.
Cash flow, budgeting, it's the thing that nobody likes talking about, but it is the foundation to everything else. And I always go through a full budget with everyone, and it's painful for them, it's painful for me. No one likes doing it, right? But we've got to go through a budget. We've got to get clear around where our money's going. And it's not about having to try to cut back here or there or scrimp and save. It's just about getting an understanding around where the money's going.
Yeah.
So we work through a budget and we allow for all the things, holidays, entertainment, clothes, like everything. And they're like, yeah, we've got everything covered. And then we get to the bottom and there's like the surplus of what's left over at the end of, each year. And they're like, well, where does that money go? And it just gets spent, because if you're not consciously aware of where your money is going, it's so easy to spend money these days. You can lie in bed in the middle of the night on your phone on Temu and be spending money, and then wake up in the morning and go, oh, shit, that's right.
Yeah.
I've got all of this. So we spend a lot of money on things that aren't actually important to us, but just because we can. And so these debt dealers, they look at, well, here's the income, here are the expenses. They can actually afford it. They can make it work. And then people get used to that kind of routine. And then they start living that way, constantly, oh, great, I've paid this off now, so now I can get something else on the same
system.
Same system.
Yeah, I just think it's sad that it's almost like the debt dealers believe in us more than we do ourselves. So we say, I can't afford to save for my retirement, etc., or invest at the moment, or save, etc. I'm going to wait for the perfect time. And then the debt dealer is like, perfect, I'll lend you some money. Like, you would think that they, that if it was so tough out there, that debt should be, less debt in that personal finance space should be pushed out, because they would go, oh, it's too risky. We know these people can't afford it, and they're telling us that they know deep down that they'll find a way to pay it because they can get it back. Yeah.
And they also, charge these horrendous interest rates and fees. So they are banking on, one in every so many
not paying.
Not paying. And that's okay, because they're charging these interest rates and fees elsewhere.
I watched an analysis from the States of the percentage of people who are missing their buy now, pay later repayments, and the numbers were way scarier than what I thought they were going to be. And the numbers that had like multiple, had more than 3. It was pretty wild, but it was a breakdown of how those businesses can be so successful. But anyway, I told you I can take us down rabbit holes, but that was where my brain went to the other day. I'm like, Because, I mean, I used to be like this in earlier life. I'd be like, oh, I can't afford KiwiSaver because I've got to pay off my credit card. Because that's the doom loop, is that you do take on the debt. Because the pushback, what I was just explaining, would be, well, they're in debt, you dickhead. That's why they can't afford, because then they've got to clear the debt first, then they're going to be able to do it. But I would always wait for this like perfect day. And that perfect day never comes to start investing, saving, or putting your KiwiSaver back to 4% or 6% or whatever, because what you're explaining is the reality of it is that you just then mould your life to the income, the accessible cash that you have, because we're amazing at spending it, but we're not great at saving it for a future thing that we don't really know what it's going to cost, what it's going to lead to, how long I'm going to live for. So it's easier to go, bang, I will get some more debt, or bang, I will buy the next thing.
1% less that we get or we see, it's not going to break the bank for most people.
Well, we should be able to mould our life to a different 1%. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, I was contributing to KiwiSaver, I drained it all out, and I brought my first home. Now I can't contribute because I can't afford my food. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to sound offensive, but it may suggest that you bought a property that you can't afford. I think they were basically like, what are you talking about? No, it's because the cost of living is really expensive. I'm like, yeah, I kind of get that, but it sounds like we've taken on too much debt. And then we've thought, okay, then the simple solution is don't save for my retirement because I can't afford to right now because of the cost of food. Like, when does the perfect day come back where you go, oh, sheesh, like food's way more affordable now. I should be contributing to my KiwiSaver. Like, we've got to wait for a pay rise, but by the time we get the pay rise, the rates have gone up. And that's scary.
Well, it's also about choosing what you do with your money, because the banks are pretty good now at looking at, can a person afford to take on this mortgage? So if there is someone that has just bought a home and they've taken out a mortgage, the bank is going to, unless there's something that's changed in their situation, but the bank is going to have looked at what their net income is and what expenses they have. And the bank uses a test interest rate that's a couple of % higher than what the real interest rates are, just to ensure that if interest rates go up, then that person is still going to be able to afford their mortgage repayments. Now, if the bank says that you can afford something, in theory, you should be able to afford it. So it could be that that person actually needs to look at, where is their money going?
Okay, well, to wrap up, what about those people who are sort of around that 50-year-old age bracket? And I'm hearing this a little bit too, where they're having chats and there's kind of more talk about money as 65 gets closer, and they're going, sheesh, you know, can I afford to retire? And some of them are going on these paths of like, we need to try and get as many rentals as we can, or maybe we need to start investing, or really understand if they've got the KiwiSaver dialed to really aggressive and for how long for. When you're having convos with people in that sort of situation or age bracket, what are some of the things that you're talking about?
50 is a great time to really start focusing in on this stuff. 50 is often an age where people say, gosh, you know, I've turned 50. And I'm like, well, you know, shit's getting real for me now. I've not got that much longer to go. I need to start planning things. And there's lots of things that they can be doing, because at that age, that's generally when, you know, earning capacity is kind of at its peak or thereabouts. They may have had their mortgage for a little while, so they're kind of getting on top of that. Their kids might be getting older, so they can see the light at the end of the tunnel when the kids are going to move on, and maybe that will help their cash flow. So they're in a really good position to do some things to really prepare for their financial future. And it's about just understanding what options are available to them. I had a couple who early 50s, 51, 53, and want to retire in 10 years, want to have like 80 grand of passive income, and they've still got a pretty reasonable mortgage, kids living at home with them, and, you know, things were looking kind of grim. And they're like, what are we going to do? And so I was looking at different options for them. And then I happened to have a look at their property online, and it said that it was like a legal home and income. And I said, oh, is your home a legal home and income? And they were like, oh, yeah, well,
What does
there's
that
the
mean?
upstairs and downstairs.
Okay.
And the kid, they got 3 kids at home, so they're kind of living downstairs. And I was like, oh, tell me what's downstairs. Oh, well, there's, a bathroom and separate entrance and 2 separate bedrooms and da-da-da. So it's a whole, unit.
Sheesh.
And I was like, would you consider renting that out, later when the kids have gone? And they were like, oh, gosh, don't really want to do that. This is our home. I was like, oh, yeah. So we went through some numbers, and in 5 years' time, when they expect the kids are going to be gone, if they rented out the downstairs, because they could probably rent it out for $600 a week, if they rented that out, they'd have to spend $10,000 putting a little kitchenette in, but they'd get $600 a week. If they did that for 5 years, that is going to just completely change their whole financial future. Yeah. Means that the mortgage is going to be gone, then they can be saving, and then they were going to end up with $70,000 of passive income that lasted them through to 85 or something.
Sheesh.
It just changed things so dramatically. And it was just from taking a moment to think about what their options are. What can we do? For someone else recently, it was about spending $150K to put a minor dwelling out the back and have that rented out to help them create passive income for the future. And again, it changed the snowball effect, them having that extra income to pay down their debt faster and then be able to save and then have a really comfortable retirement. It's just mind-blowing the difference that it can make.
I thought you were going to say, the first couple, they should charge each of their kids board, and then they can, which maybe
you could do that too.
Yeah. Well, I guess it shows the importance of having somebody outside of your situation, with experience, looking at it and going, hey, what about this? Or and almost challenging people on their thinking of what's actually possible, right?
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know. No. So, just having someone with fresh eyes, just kind of look over everything. What can we do? How can we improve this? Often people are really fearful and scared about because they don't know how to improve things. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways to improve it. Maybe someone else has the answer.
Well, I think for a lot of us, if we're worried about our parents, it's probably a good reminder to then worry about our own situation as well. And if you do need a hand with that, then you can find Amy via financialplan.co.nz. You've also got a free DIY downloadable kit there.
Yeah. So I think that's a great place to start. Download that. It takes you through a simplified version of the framework that I use with people to help them plan for their future. Nice. So if nothing else, start working through that. It'll just
leave a copy.
Good information, good knowledge, get you thinking about some new things.
I was going to say, leave a copy at your parents' place when you go around there next. Just play, be like, what's this? Oh, we need you to fill that out. Yeah. All right, so financialplan.co.nz or leverage, leverage.co.nz. But if you search for Amy Po-Ching, you'll find her. Financialplan.co.nz is probably the easiest way. I don't think this will be the last of this topic that we have to dive into, Amy. So, I'd imagine that there's a lot of people that are worried about their parents and, equally, starting to get their own things sorted, which will be scary. But doing something is better than doing nothing.
For sure.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. As always, make sure you're taking action. And I would love to see you on the 5th of December at Keep the Change Unplugged. We're going to be kicking off around 6:30, but start rolling in from 6 p.m. It's only $26. It's in Takapuna. If you Google Keep the Change Unplugged, you'll find the Ticketmaster link. I'd love to see you there. Let's get inspired by some of these amazing guests that we've had throughout the year and get ourselves ready for an awesome 2026. Bring it on.